Quentin Tarantino is an American filmmaker who has created many movies over the past 3 decades. Some of the greatest movies in the history of film have come from the brilliance of Quentin Tarantino. Now you're probably wondering, why should I care about what this hillbilly has to say about Tarantino's movies? And you know what? You don't. Actually, you shouldn't. But if you are a fan of Tarantino like I am, then sit back, relax, and enjoy while I talk about Tarantino's movies. Quentin Tarantino has made 9 films, and said he will only make 10 films, claiming that when filmmakers make 10 plus movies, they tend to get progressively worse. Today, I will be ranking all 9 of Tarantino's movies. I mean, technically he has made 10 movies, but Tarantino considers Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 to be one movie, and I do too. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I don't hate any of Mr. T's movies. I just think that some are better than others. So these movies will be ranked from least favorite to favorite and what I think are the best. With that being said, I present to you Coming in at the number 9 spot is Jackie Brown. Now, not the worst movie ever, just my least favorite. The dialogue is really funny, and a lot of that is due to Quentin Tarantino's fantastic writing. My main problem with this movie is the pacing. This movie is filled with pacing issues. I got really bored until the final act. The main thing that's present in all of Tarantino's films is the way he makes you think and feel after his movies conclude. Like, for example, does Max Cherry end up going with Jackie to Spain? Or does he really end up staying? Does Jackie even go to Spain? You see, I love a good Marvel movie every once in a while, but when they end, that's it. Everything is done and told. There's a point A and a point B. But with Jackie Brown and all of Tarantino's movies, there's a point A and B with room for speculation of a point C. Jackie Brown is definitely the most unique and different crime movie that Quentin Tarantino has ever made, but this movie makes you think. And I love that about Jackie Brown. But its pacing issues and its poor execution leaves this film as my least favorite Tarantino movie. At number 8, we have the magnificent Death Proof. This movie had me confused. Now, the original and vanilla title is called Grindhouse Death Proof. If you don't know what a Grindhouse theater is, it was basically a place where theaters would pump out films at an unhealthy rate and try to show them to as many people as they could. Oftentimes, the admission prices were inexpensive. A lot of these Grindhouse films were cheap horror slashers, hence why Death Proof is the way it is. So, to give a little more background to how Grindhouse movies were made, the films were shot on film. Editing wasn't as easy as using Premiere Pro to edit. Films had to be physically cut and put together, so that's why the movie has dust and cuts in and out to mimic the movies of that time period. Because Death Proof is not just a movie about a death-proof car, it's a love letter to a bygone era. The first part of the movie pays homage to the slashers, and the second half pays homage to the car chase films. If you want to watch a more detailed video about Death Proof, watch Daniel Netzel's video, link in the description. Death Proof, for me, is just not my cup of tea. I understand what he was going for. Don't get me wrong, I'm still able to enjoy this film, but out of all of Mr. T's movies, it stands at number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have Quentin Tarantino's first installment of the Tarantino-verse, Reservoir Dogs. I really like this movie. It has aged like fine wine. The dialogue is great. I really like how Tarantino's in this movie. I think this cameo is the best one out of all of his movies. It feels natural and isn't too distracting from the main narrative. The writing is immaculate. The story is really good, although it can feel a little drawn out at times. I was really rooting for Mr. Orange to pull through. I love the cinematography. Something I can always rely on Tarantino to do is to deliver amazing camera work. This movie was a great way to start off a film career, and it is Tarantino's baby. But for me, this baby is put at the 7th spot. At number 6, and I might get a little flack for this, but we have Hateful Eight. I absolutely adore this movie, and in my opinion, it's one of Quentin Tarantino's greatest works from a writer's perspective. The story and plot is extremely underrated. I love all the performances by all the actors in this movie, but my favorite performance is easily Walton Goggins as the sheriff of Red Rock, Chris Mannix. I thought he was okay in Django, but in this one, he's given more spotlight. Hateful Eight didn't do that well at the box office, but I think it's important to have some context as to why. When this movie came out in 2015, it was going up against Star Wars The Force Awakens. Actually, upon the release of The Hateful Eight, Quentin Tarantino had an agreement with the Los Angeles Cinerama Dome to show The Hateful Eight, but Disney made the theater break their agreement with Tarantino and extended the run of Force Awakens. From that moment on, Tarantino vowed to never work with Disney again, which is a shame because I would have loved to see Mr. Tarantino work on a Marvel movie. Hateful Eight is really good, and the camera work is through the roof. If you haven't seen The Hateful Eight, I definitely recommend you give this a watch. Coming in at the number 5 spot, we have 2012's Django Unchained. Django is a really fun movie. The violence is great, every single performance is amazing. Of course, the dialogue is some of the greatest there is, the music selection is fire. Honestly, I think it might be Tarantino's best soundtrack. There is a lot to love about this movie. It's wacky, but can also play those serious moments really well. But there's one part of the movie that kind of ruins it for me, and it's also the reason why this film isn't higher on the list. And it's the third and final act, which feels more like a two-parter. We get the badass, gory, and violent shootout scene that reminds me of this scene, but Western. Then the movie just stops, and we get the worst Quentin Tarantino cameo. Now don't get me wrong, his cameo is still funny and enjoyable, but it's too distracting. It's not bad in a horseshit kind of a way, but bad in a what the fuck kind of way. This movie is one of Tarantino's most successful coming off of Inglourious Basterds. And for good reason. I wish he would have gone for the sequel. I would have loved to have seen the Django and Zorro buddy cop movie. It would have been fun. But as of right now, the Django sits at the 5 spot.
Get down, 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 get down.
Pulp Fiction is easily one of Tarantino's best films. There's a reason why this movie is so popular within the community of film. It got Quentin off the ground and launched him into the position where he is now. The dialogue is great, but more specifically in the first opening scene and the Dave and Buster's scene. This film was the most influential film of the 90s and captivated an entire genre of film. You can make an argument that this movie is Tarantino's best motion picture. The story is great, and in my opinion, it's a 10 out of 10. After I finished this movie, I was extremely excited for the rest of QT's movies. The resurrection of John Travolta's acting career and the level of randomness makes this movie a great 8 out of 10. As we enter the top 3, I want to clarify. I believe that these 3 movies are what make Tarantino, Tarantino. And with that, I give you the movie that I believe is Tarantino at his most Tarantino. The violence is through the roof. Its over-exaggerated mess is perfect. The anime scene is able to tell a really good story on its own, and is crazy unique. There really isn't a movie like Kill Bill, and I'm not sure if it can ever be done again. The dialogue is great, we all know that. One of the many things I love about Quentin Tarantino is his ability to avoid cliches, and in this movie, he does that really well, and is able to craft an extremely satisfying and masterful conclusion. The end of Volume 2 is brilliant. Tarantino's choice in music is great. I love just about all of his selections in music, but this one is badass. The story is amazing and so unique that I haven't really seen anything like it since its 2003 release. This movie is captivating, and so far, has been able to stand the test of time with the amazing performances, the lavish writing, and the brilliant execution. Go watch it. It's on HBO Max right now. These last 2 were really tough, but the deciding factor came down to cinema, and not which is my favorite. So at number 2, we have my favorite Quentin Tarantino film, easily Tarantino's most personal film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a love letter to the changing times of Hollywood in the late 60s. We follow 3 characters throughout as they go about their day: Rick Dalton, Cliff Booth, and Sharon Tate. But the best part of this film is Cliff Booth. I've already made a separate video on why Brad Pitt's character is so amazing. The vibes? Can I just tell you about the vibes I get from this movie? Only one word can really describe the vibes I get, and the word is immaculate. I honestly think this might be his visually best movie. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt are fantastic together on screen, and that trailer scene is a masterpiece on its own. The editing and cinematography work together really well to make something magical. I love this movie, and I recommend it to everyone watching, and it's my favorite thing that the magnificent filmmaker has created. But there's one last movie on this list, and if you're a fan, you already know what it is. And at number 1, we have what I consider to be Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece. This movie is simply glorious. But why is this movie better than all the others? And it's because this movie is cinema. But not like a Batmobile flying through the fire cinema, but the camera work and how the actors are able to excel and really make this movie a spectacle type of cinema. There's a unique quality that Tarantino does exceptionally well, even to this day, and that is his ability to create suspense and anticipation. He's able to do this so well that you're led to believe these type of scenes could end atrociously or end completely fine. So well that you can be left in shock or sigh in relief. The first scene in Inglourious Basterds is a great antonym to the Hans Landa and Shoshana scene. Both build up suspense and anticipation, but both have different endings. A great recent example is the Spawn Ranch sequence in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. When that scene starts, Tarantino begins to build up the suspense with the quietness and emptiness of Spawn Ranch. Then, he makes you anticipate what happens when Cliff finally meets with George. And in Inglourious Basterds, Tarantino does this tremendously well. The basement scene is another example. If Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is my favorite, then Inglourious Basterds is my second. I believe Tarantino struck a chord with this movie, and I also believe that the filmmaker even believes that this movie is his masterpiece, with the final line being,
You know something, you rich? I think this just might be my masterpiece.
I hope you enjoyed my Quentin Tarantino movies ranking. Tarantino is easily my favorite writer and director of the 21st century. He has masterfully created some of the best movies in the history of cinema. If you liked this video, please leave a like on it. And if you want more content like this, click the subscribe button. And thank you for watching. Peace out, nerds.